Hi folks, if I were to ask you to add two numbers together, like 23 and 438, what you would do is you would set them out in a column and you would say 23 and 438. And one thing you've learned over time is that you must always line them up to that left hand side. Now, did you ever think that when you were doing hundreds, tens and ones, that the next thing along in that line was a decimal point, and the next thing along in that line was also a decimal point? So actually what you have done is you've put a line directly through the decimal point when you're adding those together. And that has to be true for all maths. So when it comes to adding decimals, what you're going to do, if I said 5.8 add 3.12, the key thing is to add them, is to put the decimals in a straight line before you start to add. If you don't do that, you're going to really struggle. So 5.8 and 3.12. And once those decimals are in a straight line, you can actually forget about them and put a decimal in the answer. Okay? Now there are a few little tricks that you might want to do here. You might want to put a 0 in there just to help you, because I think it does. It helps you understand what you're doing. So, but it's just a placeholder, even though it doesn't actually have any role. So from then on, it's just easy. 0 add 2 is 2, 8 add 1 is 9, and 5 add 3 is 8. So my answer is 8.92. Having a look at a slightly more complicated one, if we had to do 0.0083 plus 1.752, I'd start writing them out in my column. 0.0083, and then have 1.752, keeping my decimal points in a straight line so I can stick a decimal point in the answer, and then really forget about it. I need to put 0 in there so I know where I'm going, and then heading for the answer I can say 3 plus 0 is 3, 8 plus 2 is 10, so I'll put 0, carry the 1, I usually put it there. 0 plus 5 plus 1 is 6, 0 plus 7 is 7, and 0 plus 1 is 1. So my answer is 1.7603. And you could see there would be quite a lot of pitfalls in that if you were trying to do that in your head. I think there's a lot of things you could do wrong in terms of placement and things like that. And I particularly think putting the 0 in where there's a gap really helps us, because all a 0 does is tells us there's a gap in that place, and it's only a really recent invention in European maths. I mean, it's only been in about 400 or 500 years, brought in by Leonardo of Pisa, also known as Fibonacci. You'll have seen that on the story of one video. Right, so what about subtracting? So let's go for 5.86, take away 3.25. Again, let's rig this up so we've got those decimal points in a straight line. Keep my decimal points in a straight line, and then just forget about them. So here I've got 6 take away 5 is 1, 8 take away 2 is 6, and 5 take away 3 is 2. So my answer is 2.61. So let's have a look at another one. 3.8 take away 2. So 3.84 take away 2.7. So 3.84 2.7. So I've got my decimal points in a straight line. I will stick a 0 in there to hold the place. And I've got 4 take away 0 is 0, 8 take away 7 is 1, and 3 take away 2 is 1. So that's my answer. Remember, points in a straight line. Now, let's consider 5 take away 3.82. So I've got 5 and then 3.82. So how am I going to do that? Well, if I go back here and think about these whole numbers and about where I put the point on the end, let's put the point there after the 5, because this is in the ones column, so it would be a point before we went into the tenths or the hundredths. 3.82. I'm going to fill that up with zeros. So then we have to think about how we're going to do that. How can we do 0 take away 2? Well, traditionally we borrow 10 from this column and put it on there. There isn't one there, so we'll have to borrow from here. So I'll borrow from there and make that 4, and then make that into a 10. And I'll have to borrow 1 from there to make it a 9, and then make it into a 10 there. So I'm going to do 10 take away 2 is 8, 9 take away 8 is 1, keep my decimal points in the line, and 4 take away 3 is 1.18. Now, somebody showed me a trick to this only fairly recently, only a couple of years ago, and they said, if you think about 5 take away 3, that equals 2. If you were to take 1 off here and to take 1 off here, you would get 4 take away 2, which is still 2. So you still get the same answer. Now that can help us with these types of things. So if I said 5.00 take away 3.82, but I was to do the take away 1 thing and change it, so instead of 500, which you can think about that as long as you keep the decimal points in the same place, I'm going to have 499. And instead of 382, I'm going to have 381. I'll keep my decimal points in the straight line. Then when I come to do the subtraction, I can have 9 take away 1 is 8, 9 take away 8 is 1, and 4 take away 3 is 1. We get the right answer. And I think that's really, really neat. That instead of thinking about all this borrowing thing, if you take 1 off the top number and the bottom number, you still get the same answer, but it makes every subtraction really easy. But this isn't really the focus of what I'm teaching you today. This is the focus of what I'm teaching you today, that you know that whenever you add, you put the decimal points in a straight line and forget about them and just do them as a normal addition. And again here, decimal points in a straight line, forget about them. You may have to add some zeros in as a place holding sort of thing. But as long as your decimal point's in a straight line, you can just forget about them and just do it as a normal addition or subtraction. Okay? I hope you found that okay.